What did you learn from your mother? Robert's response. My mom was the epitome of love in my life. As a young boy, I'd often get irritated with her for embracing all my friends, even complaining, "Mom, please stop hugging us." But now, I long for just one more hug from her. My mom's life was cut tragically short at 48 years old. She was born with a delicate heart, and to make matters worse, she had rheumatic fever as a child, leaving her even more vulnerable. This might explain why she was so full of love and kindness. As a registered nurse, she may have known she had a limited time on this earth, so she treasured every moment she had. When I first laid eyes on my wife Kim, I was captivated by her beauty. Still, it took me 6 months of persistence to get her to agree to a date. When we finally did go out, I knew I had found the woman of my dreams. Not only was she beautiful, but she had the same nurturing warmth as my mom. We've been inseparable ever since that day in 1984. Kim and my mom may not have looked alike, but they shared the same spirit. I was in the Marine Corps when my mom died. I was stationed at Pensacola, Florida, going through Navy flight school when my dad called to tell me my mom had passed away. At the funeral, I experienced a grief I didn't know was possible. My dad, who as I said, was a giant of a man, collapsed in tears. It took all 3 of us kids to hold him and us together. A few years later, I was in Vietnam. I had flown a Marine Corps general into a remote village where the United States was planning what turned out to be a last-ditch effort, a defensive against North Vietnam. The enemy was staging a major offensive across the Demilitarized Zone Network (DMZ). We were supposed to stop them the moment they headed south. We knew the war was over. We had lost. My crew had gone into the village to get some food and to shop for souvenirs. I stayed with the helicopter parked on the edge of a grass field. Suddenly, a group of young Vietnamese boys showed up and began climbing in and out of the helicopter. I rose to my feet and in English attempted to tell them to stay away. Obviously, they did not understand my English and kept going through the aircraft, as 9 to 12-year-old boys would. Despite my attempts to keep the boys away, they kept climbing into the aircraft and playing with the machine guns and other weapons. Fearing that the boys could be Viet Cong, which was not uncommon in the area, I became more insistent. But one young lad still refused to listen. He kept coming back, so I grabbed him and threw him off the aircraft in frustration. I was terrified that one of the boys could be planting an explosive device in the aircraft, and I was determined to keep them away from it. I had finally had enough and, in a fit of rage, I grabbed the boy by the hair and pulled him out of the cabin. He retaliated by kicking me and biting my arm, and I felt my Marine Corps training kick in. I pulled out my pistol, cocked the hammer, and put the barrel to his ear while I shouted at him. Our eyes met, and he started crying from fear. He could see that I was angry and out of control, and he knew I was going to shoot him. In my mind, I was justified. I was sure he was the enemy. As I stood there with my pistol to his head, I looked into his eyes and saw his soul. There is a saying by professional hitmen that goes, "If you are going to kill someone, don't look in their eyes." Looking in this young boy's eyes, filled with tears, I suddenly began to cry. I paused. I didn't pull the trigger. As I paused, I suddenly heard my mom pleading with me. Even though she had passed on a few years earlier, I knew her voice, and it was crystal clear. "Stop," she said. "I have been pleading with you all my life to be kinder. Please stop. I did not give you life to take another mother's child." Marjorie Kiyosaki. With that, I put the hammer of the gun back, looked into the boy's eyes and let him know I was not going to kill him. Instead, I picked up the soccer ball the boys had carried, put the pistol down and signaled to his friends to play soccer instead. As I lifted off that evening, with the general on board, we came under intense enemy fire. I knew that if the boys had tipped off the enemy, it was likely due to the mercy I had shown them. That evening, I sat alone on the flight deck and reflected back on that day. Did I really hear my mom? I asked myself over and over. In the end, I realized that it did not make much difference. I had finally heard her. I had heard her message of mercy and compassion. I had made the right decision. My mom's message to me was that I was a good kid, but I had a mean streak. While I smiled a lot, beneath the surface I wanted to fight. I had a bad temper with a short fuse. When my parents joined the Peace Corps for 2 years, while I was in high school, I informed them I was going to join the Marine Corps, and I did. And they were against the Vietnam War. That day on the grassy field, outside a small village in Vietnam, was a turning point in my life. It was a defining moment. As I flew back toward the aircraft carrier, even after being shot at, I knew my career as a Marine was over. As the great American Indian chief Joseph once said, "I will fight no more forever." It is not that I will not fight. I will not fight with weapons or violence anymore. Instead, I will fight with the wisdom of my father and the compassion of my mother. In business, both Donald and I find ourselves surrounded, by choice, with strong and successful women. I acknowledge my partners, both women, for their dedication to our mission. I know the future of our new brands, Rich Woman and Rich Family, are in Kim's and Sharon's capable and compassionate hands. Today, the Rich Dad Company offers financial education, free of charge, to children all over the world. It is not that I will not fight. I will not fight with weapons or violence anymore. Instead, I will fight with the wisdom of my father and the compassion of my mother. Robert Kiyosaki. Donald's response. The mother of all advice. My mother was of Scottish heritage, and she gave me some sage advice that I have always tried to follow. Trust in God and be true to yourself. Mary Ann MacLeod Trump. That covers a lot of ground, and it serves as an important reminder to stay true to our identity while keeping the bigger picture in view. It's also short enough that it's easy to recall. I'm sure my mother's influence was on my mind when I said think big. They say brevity is the soul of wit, but it also makes for a better memory. My mother appreciated opulent spectacle and admired European regal processions and festivities. Even though she was Scottish and very frugal with her time and money, she may be the source of my more flamboyant side. Her interests were varied yet well balanced because she always had time to donate to charities and worthy causes. I like to think mine are, too, and I'm a quiet giver in many cases. Also, if you are famous and you give a lot and noisily, I can tell you your volume of requests for help, from everything from hot air balloons to college educations to summer vacations, will escalate by the tens of thousands. There's a lot to be said for being low-key. Our family suffered a loss when my older brother Fred passed away at the age of 42. I was greatly affected by that and was able to witness my parents' pain. No matter what their age, losing a child is never easy. It always comes as a shock, and you are affected daily for the rest of your life. I believe that once I understood how precious life is, I made the decision to live it to the fullest extent possible for both myself and people around me. It changed the course of my life. That is one of my more subdued motivations for being who I am. The eventual consequence may not always be as quiet, but this loss has provided a major motivation. After that awful occurrence in their lives, I felt more connected to and responsible for my parents' happiness than ever before. Yes, it was difficult for me, but for them, it was much more difficult. My mother was a pious woman who actively practiced her religion. That served as a wonderful example for me both as a child and an adult. She was very modest, quite gentle, and forceful all at the same time. She gave completely and without holding anything back. You can see that I have excellent reason to praise my parents when I do. My mother's advice was simple but wise. It cuts to the core and keeps me focused and well balanced. Trust in God and be true to yourself. It doesn't get any better than that. The renowned physicist Albert Einstein, who was encouraged by his mother to pursue his dreams and follow his own path in life. His mother, Pauline Einstein, was a major influence in his life, not only providing emotional and financial support, but also inspiring him to take risks and think independently. She was known to tell him, "You must be independent, my son, and learn to stand on your own 2 feet." Pauline Einstein. This advice proved invaluable to him throughout his career, and it ultimately helped him to achieve great success in his field. Young entrepreneur Nick D'Aloisio. At the age of 15, Nick created an app called Sumly, which summarized news articles in a simple format. Nick's mother encouraged him to take a risk and pursue his dream, and this led to him becoming the youngest person to ever receive venture capital funding. Nick's story is an inspiring example of the power of hard work and the encouragement of a supportive mother. What did you learn from your mother that has helped you become successful today? If your mother was not a positive role model in your life, describe the influence of another woman who greatly influenced your life.